What do I think about OM1 Mark II after testing it for a few days? Let me tell you. Hi, it's Peter here. Before we get into the business, a disclaimer. This OM1 Mark II is not mine, it's from OM System. I met the representative here in Finland and we had a nice lunch, and they asked me, or he asked me if I want to test it, and I said, of course I want to test it because I used OM System cameras and Olympus cameras for a long time, and now I'm using something different, but it is always interesting to test a camera and see how much better it is than the previous one, because I used OM1 for quite a long time, well, a year and a half. But they did not tell me what to discuss in this video, so everything I say is my own opinion about this. And before we start the video, the real topic of the video, a special thanks to Esko Toivakka. One of my followers and subscribers for many years offered to lend me the OM1, the Mark I version, and a 300mm f4 lens so I could test the AF with birds, and I went out and photographed some birds too. I will show some of the results and talk about the subject recognition AF. I will go through some questions that you sent me. I had a community post where you asked me, where I asked you what do you want to know about the camera, and then I made a short video when I got the camera and asked there too. And the most of the questions were about the responsiveness of the camera, how fast it is, and then of course some was asking me about the firmware. Is it only a firmware upgrade? And I will get that right at first before I get into the features. And then of course LiveGND was something that people were interested in, and of course the autofocus and especially the human tracking. And then of course also the things, the knobs here are a little bit different, and how do I feel about that. And before we get into the firmware thing, let's look what I find out about the dials in the front and back. And yeah, let's talk about the knobs in the front they've done, and the back wheel too. They've put some new type of coating, or I don't know what you call it, but anyways, I can use them really well with gloves on, and that's slightly different from what I remember from OM1, the first version. So that's a good improvement. Let's see if there's anything to photograph here. Do you see anything? Maybe let's look at the bikes. And then let's talk a few words about the firmware thing. When this camera was launched, there were a lot of comments about that, why didn't they just do a firmware update and all that. But the thing is that it has a new memory chip, which is a more powerful memory, more memory. I think it's also faster memory. So some of the stuff just was not possible, or would have been possible with just a firmware update. And there's also kind of like two sides of making a firmware updates to cameras, big updates like they did back in the early days of EM1 cameras. The first one got really huge updates. And that was the policy back then. Now, if we think that if they had made possible for OM1 to have all these features with firmware updates, how much money would OM System had made, or OMDS had made, with just an update for some features via firmware? It would have been free and they would have made no money. It only would have cost them to make the firmware. Yes, I know. Customer satisfaction is something that you need to take care of your existing customers so that they don't, look elsewhere and buy something else. And that's the fine balance. And it turns out that OM1, the original version, will get a firmware update next fall. So they did kind of this. Okay, we don't know if they made the decision to update OM1 after people were really wanting the features to OM1, that, of course, those ones that are possible. But I can assure you that this is not just firmware update, and that is the case. That's for a fact, because the new memory chip enables stuff that would not have been possible to just do with the firmware. I will discuss if the camera has enough features for someone to update, which is of course more about my own perspective, because of course I can't say for you if you need to upgrade or want to upgrade. It's all up to you based on stuff that you've heard about the camera online. Okay, and let's test the buffer and how much better buffer this camera has. It should be better because there is more powerful memory, but let's see how much better that is. I have this pretty simple setup where I have a stopwatch over there and I try to, sync them at the same time, but I can compare the images even though I don't, or the cameras if I don't be very precise. And I have 1/500th of a second here, so the shutter speed won't be too long, so that it can make 120 images per second. And then I have the shutter, the silent shutter on that, so that it will be 120 frames per second. And here we go, and there you can see the memory card is doing. And what's really great about it is that, we can see this, you can see what's going on in the image, and 120 frames per second raw files. And this is OM1 Mark II. And I'll go roughly about 3 minutes and see how many images it can take in 3 minutes, and then we can see how long does it take to write those images. The thing is that you never do this. You never need to, take 3 minutes of images with your camera like this. So this is just a theoretical test how well this is, and I'm going to do the same with the OM1. Okay, now we have 3 minutes of images, and then now we can check how long does it take to write all these images. And let's see how long does it take. Yeah, 18 seconds. And now I have OM1 Mark I here with the exact same settings, and let's see how that goes. We're going for 3 minutes, and I try to be as precise as possible. And now 3 minutes, and we can see how much time does it take for it to write all those images. It was actually faster. This is interesting. But I need to check out if it took the same amount of images. And the results are in. Total amount of images was 162 images more with the newer camera, with the OM1 Mark II. So it indicates that it is better in sense when it comes to the memory. But it took a bit longer to write those images to the memory card because it was 162 images more. On 1 minute mark, the difference was 140 images in favor of OM1 Mark II. So it is faster, and clearly the results show that the buffer is better and bigger. Let's get on with the next subject. And next, let's talk about LiveGND. LiveGND is probably one of the most exciting features on this camera because no other camera has it yet. Maybe they will in a couple of years. But this is a unique feature that only this model or this camera has. And I think it's huge. It is, again, something that Olympus/OM system has done as the first camera company. So they have been innovating. Is that enough innovation for you? I don't know. But if I was a landscape photographer, this would be really interesting because I wouldn't have to carry around gradual ND filters. It's built in the camera, and it's very versatile. You can, have it this way, and you can turn around it, and you can also choose which, where's the point where it turns and all that, and it's really useful. And then let's talk about the AF. That is something that they say that they have made better, and the algorithm is better, the subject recognition is better, and especially now that they have added the human recognition to the same place where the subject recognition is. So the human is a subject now also on the camera. It's in the same place in the menu. It's so much more convenient to go around in the menu system that you don't have to, toggle around with different parts of the menu system. I think this makes a lot of sense, and other camera companies should do that too, if they haven't already. I know that Fuji hasn't, but I don't know about the others if they do. It's a good thing. How good it is, yes, in my testing, it works better and it is more accurate. And I think that's was expected. How much better would that make a difference in different shooting scenarios? Because I only had it for a few days, so I can't test everything. But I can assure you that it works better. It is faster and better. And of course, the better memory will make that possible. So yes, there is an improvement. Now it's available also to have 14-bit high-res shots. I tested it with handheld high-res shot with this image. This is the 14-bit image and this is the 12-bit image. When you look at the image like this, you don't really see the difference. And that's always the case. When you're looking at the image as a small size on your screen, you might not see a big of a difference. Of course, when you punch in to 100%, then there might be some differences. And yes, there is a difference. It is slightly deeper colors and slightly better dynamic range. So it shows more details and it's slightly sharper too. I don't know if that's got something to do with the 12-bit or 14-bit. I'm not sure. It could be that because it was handheld shot that there was maybe a bit more handshake in the 12-bit image. Not really sure. But it was across the board when I took a different images with the 12-bit and 14-bit. The 14-bit was slightly better. So that is something that if you use the high-res shot, then the 14-bit is an advantage. OM1 Mark II has the exact same sensor and processor. So is there a difference between OM1 and OM1 Mark II when it comes to noise in the images? Here are images that are made with ISO 6400. And yes, I know it's not the darkest place to take this image. And it was, well, I wanted to get an image that is a photograph and not just a test shot, which is always a bit of a drag when you're doing camera test. You do these test shots, and I tried to do an image that I might like also as an image and not only as a test image. So that's why this image. And as you see here, 6400 ISO, not really a big difference in this. It's pretty close. The noise looks slightly different and it's only a matter of a taste which one you like. But the amount of noise, I would say that it's about equal. But then when we go to 25,600, then you can see a clear difference. The noise looks slightly more pleasing, if noise can look pleasing, but it's a better looking noise in the OM1 Mark II image versus OM1. And that is something that might benefit you. But as I said, lower ISOs, the difference is very, very little, if not at all. But when you're getting to really high ISOs, then it gives better results, the newer camera. And also, the white balance is slightly better. It's more natural looking, and the OM1 image was slightly bluer. So there is a slight difference because the settings were exact the same. And now that you have seen all this stuff, it's about time to talk, is it worth it? The new features and more responsiveness, faster camera, yes, it could be. If you are a wildlife photographer and if you are photographing birds, yes, this is a better camera than the original OM1. For myself, I did not have that many improvements compared to what I remember from OM1 because I don't do wildlife and birds and all that. I do mostly portraits and street photography stuff. Yes, the human recognition thing works better when doing portraits, so that could have been one thing. But it is, or is it something that big that I would invest and upgrade? That's a speculation. I don't know. And since the video features weren't really that much improved, that part would not make me upgrade from OM1 to OM1 Mark II. But then on the other hand, if you are, like I said, a landscape photographer, for example, LiveGND is a really good feature. It's revolutionary. You don't have to carry filters, I mean gradual filters around or anything like that. And since it has also the LiveGND, which of course other cameras from Olympus has too, you don't need, or basically you don't need ND filters at all, except when it's really bright light, then they might be still useful if you need to do long exposure in bright sunlight, because of the shutter speed is half a second is the fastest shutter speed, and that of course when it's bright you know that you would have to stop down quite a bit, which would cause diffraction. So, but basically you don't need ND filters, not the real ones or the whole, what do you call the, just an ND filter or gradual ND filters anymore with if you have this camera and want to or need to use them. And I think that's huge. Yeah, and for myself, it would be only speculation because I use different brand cameras now and have not, I would say that I don't know if I would have updated or upgraded to this one. Eventually, maybe I would have, but I can't say for sure. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.